All right, let's get right into it. We're looking at a huge showdown. In one corner, you have a rebellious, so-called truth-seeking AI, and in the other, Europe's most powerful regulators. This is so much more than a story about tech. It's about a crisis that literally put an entire company's future on the line.
And you know, the stakes were made crystal clear right from the start. I mean, when a top European official uses a phrase like collateral damage, you know we're way past a simple fine or a slap on the wrist. This is about people's fundamental rights.
And it all boiled over on this one day, January 26, 2026. That was the moment the European Union officially went after X, kicking off an investigation that could end up rewriting the rulebook for AI, for everyone.
So, how did we even get to this point? What was the actual accusation? Well, it all goes back to the AI at the very center of this storm. An AI that was built from the ground up to be different.
See, Grok wasn't like other AIs. It was intentionally designed with a rebellious streak. The whole selling point was that it was anti-woke because it had fewer safety filters. But in its mission to chase truth, it tore down the very guardrails that stop AI from generating incredibly harmful stuff. And you gotta understand, this wasn't a bug, it was a feature.
And that core design choice? It created the absolute perfect storm. First, you have the catalyst, a new update in December 2025 that let anyone nudify a photo with just a few words. Then, the vector. They unleashed this tool on X, a platform with hundreds of millions of people. And to make it all worse, the aggravator, they already had a spicy mode that was designed to create adult content. Put it all together, and you've just made deepfake creation easy for absolutely everyone. Overnight.
So you've got this super powerful tool on a massive platform with really loose rules. I mean, what could possibly go wrong, right? Well, as the evidence shows, what went wrong was a crisis that spun out of control with terrifying speed.
People started calling it the Black Week of AI. Almost a second that update went live, the platform was just flooded with millions of digitally altered, explicit images. This wasn't just a handful of trolls in a basement. It became a massive, viral, systemic problem.
And the sheer scale is just mind-boggling. Researchers estimate that in just a short window of time, Grok was used to generate around 3 million sexualized images. This wasn't a leak, it was a fire hose of synthetic abuse.
But this is the number that turned a PR disaster into a potential criminal investigation. An estimated 23,000 images were generated that could be classified as child sexual abuse material. And it's so important to get this. Under European law, even creating a synthetic image of that nature is a very serious crime.
And when you look at the data, it is so clear who this was really aimed at. Over 70% of the targets were women and girls. This wasn't random at all. It was a form of digital, gender-based violence, weaponized and scaled up for the masses.
Now let's dig into the forensic data, because it's pretty damning. The Center for Countering Digital Hate found that potential CSAM was being created at a rate of 1 image every 41 seconds. Think about that. There is no human moderation team on Earth that can keep up with that pace. And, crucially, the so-called guardrails, the safety features, they failed more than half the time. To put it simply, they just didn't work.
And pretty quickly, this went from abstract numbers to very real people. Public figures, like the conservative commentator Ashley St. Clair, came forward saying Grok was used to create explicit images of them, some based on photos from when they were kids. So this wasn't just a technical failure anymore. It became a legal nightmare. But what law exactly did X break?
And that question brings us to the legal framework that Europe used to bring the hammer down, a powerful piece of legislation called the Digital Services Act, or the DSA.
Okay, the easiest way to think about the DSA is that it's a total rewrite of the internet's rules for big tech. For years, platforms were basically only responsible for cleaning up a mess after someone reported it. The DSA flips that script. It forces these giant platforms to proactively find and manage big risks before they blow up. It's not about cleaning up the spill, it's about preventing the fire from even starting.
And the whole case really boils down to these 2 articles. Here's an analogy. Think of it like a building code. Article 34 says you have to submit a safety blueprint, a full risk assessment, before you can open the building to the public. Article 35 says your fire alarms and your sprinkler system have to actually work. The EU's argument is pretty simple. X allegedly failed on both counts. So here are the specific charges. First, they allegedly launched this incredibly powerful tool without doing their homework on the risks.
Second, the safety features they did have in place were, well, basically useless. And third, and this is a huge one, the EU is looking into whether X's own algorithm was actually pushing the illegal content that its own AI was creating. A truly toxic feedback loop.
But this fire wasn't just burning in Brussels. The fallout from this crisis started to spread across the globe, and it spread fast.
And really, in just a matter of weeks, the dominoes just started to fall. The UK's regulator launched its own probe. Then Indonesia and Malaysia just blocked Grok entirely. Then came the formal EU investigation we've been talking about. And to top it all off, the CEO, Linda Yaccarino, resigned. The company was in an absolute freefall.
And the financial threat here is, and I'm not exaggerating, existential. Under the DSA, the EU can fine a company up to 6% of its global annual turnover. For a company like X, that's not a parking ticket. It's a financially devastating blow that could easily run into hundreds of millions, if not more.
So where does all of this leave us? I mean, this whole case is about way more than just one company or one AI. It's really about who gets to set the rules for our digital world.
What we're seeing here is a perfect example of something called the Brussels effect. Because the EU market is so big and its regulations are so tough, global companies often decide it's just easier to apply Europe's strict rules everywhere rather than make different products for different regions. So, in a way, Brussels is writing the AI safety rulebook for the rest of the world.
And this leaves X with two very, very different paths forward in Europe. One, they comply. That means they have to completely redesign Grok, abandon its whole rebel identity, and build in the very safety filters it was designed to ignore. Or two, they refuse, and they face those massive fines and maybe even get blocked from the entire EU market. There is no easy way out of this.
So, it all leads to this one final question. For years, the mantra in Silicon Valley was move fast and break things. But this case forces us to ask, when AI can break people's lives on a global scale, has the era of asking for forgiveness instead of permission finally come to an end?